Welcome everybody to Webinar 777, the global leader for life-changing webinars to empower dreams. The title of today's presentation is An MD's Perspective on Healthy Water. You might be wondering what water has to do with your dreams. Well, your greatest wealth is your health. So if you lose your health, your dreams aren't going to have as much oomph behind them. Your health is very important to your dreams. How you feel matters for you being able to function in your life at a high level. This is an outline of what we're going to cover. I'm going to just share a little bit about my background and why I feel that I'm an expert in this particular area of water. I'm going to share some of the test results of our water in our home that got me to be so passionate about embracing healthy water and teaching other people about healthy water. I'm going to talk a little bit about the significance of pH and ORP, which stands for oxidative reduction potential. I'm going to share about what some key doctors and scientists have to say about healthy water. I'm going to talk a little bit about medicinal water, perhaps, and I'm going to get in a brief discussion about the difference between ionizers. And then at the end, we're going to have just a few short stories and comments by Pat Cassidy and Patricia, both of whom have been drinking the healthy water for quite a while. So they have a lot of experience and they've seen a lot of people get better. My background is that I practiced clinical medicine as an anesthesiologist in the operating rooms for more than 20 years in hospitals. I stepped away from my clinical practice in December 2006 from my best job ever to take a sabbatical year. During that year, I became a leadership coach, and my passion has become empowering people's dreams. So rather than putting one person off to sleep at a time or overseeing a few people going off to sleep or doing pain blocks, I've decided that I would like to be empowering hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, and even millions of people ultimately. And as an anesthesiologist, I was actually managing people's fluids in the operating room. So I took care of their fluid management, and the type of fluids that we gave to people in their veins determined where that went. The minerals that were in the water determined where it went. And so I learned a lot about water. How much of your body is water? A majority of your body is water. And I learned in the past 6 years that water is actually the most important nutrient in your body. I used to think that water was water. I mean, I knew it wasn't just water, like what you gave in someone's IV mattered, but I figured that what you drank, it didn't really matter, that as long as it didn't have bacteria in it and as long as it tasted okay, it was okay. Then I learned from working with a wellness coach a few years ago that the type of water you drink does matter. And so at that time, I chose to actually get bottled water in 5-gallon containers, spring water, and have that in my home. Even though we had well water in our home, I chose to be drinking that. And until it was actually tested, I didn't realize there was a big difference. Well, let me just tell you this. An anesthesiologist is a highly trained physiologist. An anesthesiologist understands how the body works, how the different organs and tissues of the body work. And also, an anesthesiologist is a highly trained pharmacologist, too. We understand how many drugs work. We obviously have to know about pills that people might be taking, but we also understand that when we give people IV drugs, we can see an effect immediately. Within 10 seconds, 20 seconds, we can see an effect on the body, and you're never more closely monitored in your life than when you're in the operating room. So that's the perspective I'm coming from. I'm coming from the perspective of a water doctor, as a water physician with more than 20 years of experience working with 10,000 patients in my career. So let's go ahead and talk about the test results for the water in our home. Earlier in 2013, two people came to my home, Jack Stagman and Mike Cassidy, to test the water and to leave one of these healthy water machines in our house to test the water and see how we liked it. So I had been drinking this other water for 4 or 5 years, paying to have it delivered to my home, feeling that it was healthier than my well water or other water that I could drink or bottled water that I could just buy in the little bottles. The family that was running the business, I admired. It was a well-run business, good people, and it had spring water on it, so I figured it was good. And yet I realized that none of this water is regulated. People put what they want, basically, in those water bottles, even though I'm sure they're not trying to intentionally hurt us. So what were the results when people actually came and tested our water? These are some examples. This is water, and it has pH drops that have been put in this, showing pH of about 3, and I'll explain about pH shortly. That was the bottled water, this 5-gallon water that we were paying to have delivered in our house. This is the well water that we had, and that pH, if you look at a color chart, that pH is about 7. The pH ranges between 0 and 14. And this is the Kangen water. This is pH of 9.5. It's alkaline water. pH of 7 is neutral. And anything less than 7 is acidic. Anything more than 7 is alkaline. And the bigger the number, the more alkaline it is. So this is what I was drinking for 4 or 5 years, a pH of about 3. And this is what I'm drinking now, a pH of about 9. Now that's a 6-point difference in pH. 9 minus 3 is a 6-point difference. So let me just show you this pH chart. Here's 7 is neutral. Your blood is actually a pH of about 7.4, and it has what's called buffers in it to help keep that pH in a very narrow range. So when you put things in your body that are acidic or alkaline, your blood has things in it to keep that pH very close to 7.4. That's how important your pH is to your body. When you put acidic things in your body, things are compromised. You're using other things in your body to buffer, things in your tissues to buffer that ultimately to keep that pH to be okay. And there's short-term and long-term consequences of doing that. Let me just explain the difference between the water I was drinking before, pH 3, and pH 9 that I'm drinking now. Each point on this pH scale represents a 10-fold difference. So that going from a pH of 3 to 4 is actually a 10-fold difference in acidity. And going from a pH of 3 to 5 is 10 times 10-fold difference, or a 100-fold difference, 10 to the second power. Well, going from a pH of 3 to 9 is a 10 to the 6th power, or 1,000,000 times different. In other words, the acid load to my body with the water that I'm currently drinking is 1,000,000 times less drinking this alkaline water than what I was drinking before. And if you test most of the bottled water that you buy commercially, you're going to see that the pH typically is 3 or 4 or 5. It's almost always acidic. And you don't know the other things that are in that water. Now we took tomatoes that we bought in a store, and we put the tomatoes in regular water, in the well water, and in the bottled water. The water doesn't change color. But if we put those tomatoes in this water that's pH 11.5, and only the magic machines make that kind of water, you can see that the water turned yellow-brown. And these are the chemicals, the pesticides coming off the tomatoes. And you can actually taste the difference in the tomatoes, but more importantly, you're removing these pesticides. Later on, I'm going to talk about the difference in the ionizers, but there's a difference. The magic machines are the only ones that are making the low pH and the high pH water, the pH of 11.5 and the low pH of 2.5. When we tested the oxidative reduction potential, the ORP, for these waters, it turned out that my well water and bottled water, the 5-gallon containers, the oxidative reduction potential was about plus 700. Now, plus means it's causing oxidation or rusting or aging of your body. And a negative number is good. It means it's antioxidizing. This water, in contrast, the Kangen water, pH 9.5, the oxidative reduction potential, this is minus 700. That has about a 7 times greater antioxidant property compared to green tea, which we know is a good antioxidant. When we took tea bags and we put them in regular water, cold water, the water would stay clear or would change color very slowly. But when we put it in the Kangen water, the tea would come out of the tea bag very quickly, and that's because the water molecules are in smaller clusters, about a third the normal size. Well, what does that mean to your body? That means that the water, being about the third the size, are absorbed a lot faster. And when you drink this Kangen water, you actually notice that you don't feel bloated. You don't hear the swishing in your stomach because the water is absorbed so fast. That was just the testing at home, and that's what made me passionate. What I realized was the water that I was drinking at home is actually causing inflammation in my body. Whether it was my well water, and our well is about 250 feet deep, or whether it was that 5-gallon bottled water containers, was actually causing inflammation in my body and was giving my body an acidic load. Here's a chart showing negative numbers are good, antioxidizing, and positive numbers aren't as good. And the more positive it is, the worse it is for you to be drinking. Let's share just what a few scientists and physicians have to say. This is Dr. Lester Parker, and he's a world-famous antioxidant research scientist at the Lawrence Berkeley Laboratories. He says consuming the right type of water is vital to detoxifying the body's acidic waste products and is one of the most powerful health treatments available. We recommend that you drink 8 to 10 glasses per day of this alkaline water. It is one of the simplest and most powerful things that you can do to combat a wide range of disease processes. So let me share now about Otto Warburg, who was a German scientist. He won the Nobel Prize for Medicine in 1931, and he was actually nominated for a Nobel Prize an unprecedented 3 different times. I've done a lot of research about him, and he was regarded as one of the top biochemists of the entire 20th century. Warburg was actually befriended by Albert Einstein and was mentored by Albert Einstein, and we know what a great scientist Albert Einstein was. So what did Otto Warburg discover? What he discovered is that cancer cannot grow in an alkaline, oxygen-rich environment. That cancer actually thrives in an acidic, oxygen-depleted environment. I'm going to actually read something. This is coming from Wikipedia, but you can actually find some of the scientific papers that were presented at major scientific meetings in the past, and I read those papers too. Warburg said that cancer, above all other diseases, has countless secondary causes. But even for cancer, there is only one prime cause. Summarized in a few words, the prime cause of cancer is a replacement of the respiration of oxygen, the normal use of oxygen in your body cells, by a fermentation of sugar. See, if you're using oxygen right, you're not going to ferment sugar. It goes through something called the Krebs cycle. It goes through a different process. But in cancer cells, there's a different process that's actually taking place. Warburg also wrote about oxygen's relationship to the pH of cancer cells' internal environments. Since fermentation was a major metabolic pathway of cancer cells, Warburg reported cancer cells maintain a lower pH, a pH of 6, due to lactic acid production and elevated CO2. He firmly believed there was a direct relationship between pH and oxygen. Now, that's interesting because Patricia Charles is on the call here, and her husband was a microscopist. That was a hobby of his. He would look at people's red blood cells under the microscope, and what he saw with people that were sick is a lot of times their red blood cells were clustered together. Instead of just being individual red blood cells, you might have 2 of them stuck together. And drinking even 1 to 2 glasses of this healthy water and then checking the blood 15 minutes later, those red blood cells would get unclustered. Well, when the red blood cells are passing through the capillaries, there's barely enough room for 1 red blood cell to go through those capillaries at a time. So when they're clustered, your flow of the red blood cells through the capillaries is not going to be as good. Oxygen delivery is not going to be as good. Here this goes on to say, when frustrated by the lack of acceptance of his ideas, Warburg was known to quote an aphorism he attributed to Max Planck. Science progresses not because scientists change their minds, but rather because scientists attached to erroneous views die and are replaced. Seemingly utterly convinced of the accuracy of his conclusions, Warburg expressed dismay at the continual discovery of cancer agents and cancer viruses, which he expected to hinder necessary preventive measures and thereby become responsible for cancer cases. In other words, we have all these things that can cause cancer. But what he's saying is that every disease has a primary cause, a main cause. And the main cause of cancer is this fermentation of sugar creating an acidic environment. It's the acidic environment that's having these cancer cells be able to grow. So as long as we're focused on all these other things that can cause cancer, we're never going to get at the root cause. That's what he's saying. That's what he's saying. So that's someone who was trained by Albert Einstein, mentored by Albert Einstein. So let's hear about Dr. Faradun. Dr. Faradun was born in Iran, and then he went to London for his medical training as a physician. And one of his mentors was Sir Alexander Fleming, who was the one who discovered penicillin in the 1940s. So what did Dr. Faradun have to say? He says, I am a researcher. I have researched dehydration for the past 20 years when I discovered that the solution to most of the disease conditions of our society is not a money maker. I decided to take my information to the public. My research revealed that unintentional dehydration produces stress, chronic pains, and many degenerative diseases. Dry mouth is not the only sign of dehydration, and waiting to get thirsty is wrong. Medicine has based its understanding that it's solid matter in the body that regulates all functions of the body. I have explained scientifically at the molecular level that it is water that regulates all functions of the body, including functions of solid matter. 75% of our bodies are composed of water. So what is he saying? He's saying that dehydration is a primary cause of disease. And he's written a book called You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty. And this healthy water that we're talking about that goes through these ionizers makes the water microclustered, or in other words, it's a third the size of the regular water that you're drinking. So it's absorbed better in the body and in the cells. So it actually hydrates the body better than other water that you're typically drinking. Let me share what someone else has to say. This is Dr. Hirima Shina, and he's a leading endocrinologist. He's done more than 300,000 colonoscopies and upper endoscopies, looking at people's stomach and large intestines, their colons, for 35 years. And he actually invented the thing that could do a colon polypectomy, be able to snare a polyp and take it out without having to do surgery. And he says he realizes that our health largely depends on our dietary life. And from his experiences, he's one of the leading authorities in the world on this subject. He teaches healthy dietary habits for you to enjoy your life. And he says, it is widely recognized in the medical profession that a healthy and clean colon is one of the most important precursors to good health, and that the great majority of body ailments and diseases originate in an acidic and dirty colon. Water is essential for your health. Drinking good water, healthy water, especially hard water, which has much calcium and magnesium with the minerals in it, keeps your body at optimal alkaline pH. Kangen water is alkaline-rich water and is considered the very best drinking water because of its incomparable powers of hydration, detoxification, and antioxidation. Now, Jack Stagman is the person who originally introduced me to the healthy water. He had been having problems with diverticulitis, 5 to 10 bouts a year, and he was hospitalized about 2 years ago for a week. And he was advised to have part of his colon taken out and to have a permanent colostomy bag. In other words, to have his stool draining from his side for the rest of his life. And he asked, is there an alternative? And the physician told him, well, you could go home and try to be managed conservatively, but we don't expect you to get better, something like that. Jack went home and someone bought him one of the Kangen water machines, and Jack began drinking lots of the alkaline, ionized Kangen water daily. Well, when he went back for his colonoscopy 3 months later, The doctor who was doing that said, I can't believe it. He showed him pictures from before and after. And he said, your colon is normal. You don't have to come back for another colonoscopy for 5 years. 5 years. I mean, here was a guy who was told he needed to have his colon taken out and have this permanent bag, and 3 months of drinking healthy water, he's normal. Plus, he had been having 40 years of chronic back pain from a war injury that he had, and within a week to 2 weeks of drinking that water, his back pain went away, presumably because of hydration of his disc, but also the anti-inflammatory properties of the water. This is by Dr. Morishita. He's a director of this clinic in Japan and the head of the International Natural Medicine Association. Listen, I'm a believer in homeopathic medicine. I don't think that just classical medicine, especially the way it's just being taught, has all the answers. I believe that nature has the answers, that there's simple solutions to our problem, and that pills, drugs are not the answer. They take care of symptoms a lot of times, but they don't get at the root problem. Modern medicine treats these malignant cells, or cancer cells, as if they were bacteria and viruses. It uses chemotherapy, radiation, and surgery to treat cancer. Yet none of these treatments will help very much if the environment of the body continues to remain acidic. Drinking water that has a high alkaline pH because of its deacidifying effect will help in preventing cancer. In Asia, alkaline water is regularly served to patients and it's considered a regular part of treatment. In Japan, it's my understanding that 1 out of 4 homes have one of these Kangen water machines. So they're drinking the alkaline water regularly. And Japan has the longest longevity of any country in the world. In other words, people live longer than any other country in the world. And it has one of the highest health indices for the entire world. And the United States is down into the 30s, around the range where Cuba is. So here we have all this technology, we have all these highly educated physicians and other healthcare workers, but there's something that's not right. This is a picture of someone's thumb. I was telling you before that only the magic machines can make the low pH water, pH 2.5, and the high pH water, the high alkaline water, pH 11.5. And it's been shown by ATS Labs, which is one of the leaders in the world with microbiology, studying bacteria, that the pH 2.5 water, the high acidic water with high oxidative reduction potential, high ORP, kills 99.999% of bacteria within 30 seconds. Now, when we were in the operating room and we were cleaning someone's body, say they were having a hip replacement or an elbow operation or an operation on their abdomen, their belly, we would clean them a lot of times with betadine or some other solution, and we'd clean them several times, and that whole prep would take 5 minutes, 7 minutes. And this water will kill almost all bacteria within 30 seconds. And that includes MRSA, methyl-resistant staph, which is resistant to a lot of bacteria. Now in Japan, in hospitals, they routinely treat wounds with water, with this acidic water. And they also take care of burn victims that way. But in the United States, relatively few hospitals and healthcare facilities are treating them that way. This is a picture of someone's thumb. It was recommended that this person have his thumb amputated. Well, after he began using this acidic water, spraying it to just allow it to clean, and this applies to any wound, you can see just the progression here, how it starts to change color, starts to close. Here this person has a thumb that's functional now, when they were going to have to amputate it because it was just getting worse and worse. And yet they were trying antibiotics, they were trying local wound care things, and yet just simple water was making that better. This is what Dr. Corinne Allen has to say. She's a brain specialist. She's a researcher. She's been a nutritionist. She's not a physician, but she treats a lot of people with a variety of brain diseases. She says that most diseases of the brain are caused by one of 3 things: acidosis, inflammation, and dehydration. Now, this Kangen water is taking care of all 3 of those because it's alkaline, that's addressing the acidosis. It has a very negative oxidative reduction potential. In other words, it's very strong antioxidant, which is decreasing inflammation. And it's microclustered.
The water molecules are a lot smaller, so it's hydrating the cells better. Now, there was actually on the front page of Time magazine about 4 years ago a message on there saying that inflammation felt to be primary cause of cancer and heart disease, two of the leading killers in America. People are aware about the importance of taking antioxidants, and here you can get that from just drinking this alkaline ionized water.
Here are the properties of healthy water. It must be alkaline, not acidic. 2, it must be antioxidative. 3, it must be microclustered for faster absorption and hydration. 4th, it must have minerals. And 5th, it must be pure and free of environmental pollutants.
When you're drinking distilled water or reverse osmosis water, that's taking out the minerals in that water, taking out the healthy things in your water. We hear about acid rain. Jack Stegman actually tested the water for pH and alkalinity after a thunderstorm. After it had rained, he collected it in a bottle, tested it right away. The pH of that water was about 3, and the oxidative reduction potential was about plus 400. And that water coming out of the skies is filling our lakes and our rivers and the underground streams for our wells. And why is that happening? Because of all the pollution of our environment. Our health is primarily threatened by stress, and we have acidic stress, and then we also have that oxidative stress too. We know that we have a crisis in America, but what's actually going on? Why are people getting sicker? I know that water is the most important nutrient of your body. It's affecting almost every chemical reaction that's taking place in your body, and the problem is that we're not drinking that healthy water. So let me just address the last thing. Are all ionizers created equal? Enagic has been in the business of healthy water and making these machines for 40 years. They're the only one that has the medical grade ionizers used in hospitals. Their machines last typically 15 to 20 years. One of my friends, someone that I know who's been in this healthy water business for about 5 years, told me that he actually will advertise in a newspaper about people, who want to test their machines to see how they're functioning. So he'll test other ionizers, and he'll, even though it's coming out of this water ionizer machine, he'll be able to show that it's not working like it originally was. Even after 2 years, these people are ditching their machine, and so he'll go ahead and give them a discount on one of these Enagic machines. But he'll actually take apart the machines and he'll take a look at it, and the plates will be corroded. Yet when the water's coming out, you think it's okay. So if you get an ionizer, be sure you have some way of testing that water, long term to see how it's actually working. And one of the people who's a nutritionist for a lot of professional athletes in America, including the NBA, the National Basketball, the NFL, Major League Baseball, the U.S. Olympic Committee, he actually did a lot of research to decide which company and which ionizers to go with when he was dealing with professional athletes. And he came to the conclusion that Enagic has the best machines, the best reputation. They're the ones to go with. And they're testing these athletes scientifically.
I'm going to stop there with my teaching so we can get some feedback from two of our panelists. Pat, Cassidy, let's hear from you first.
Well, thank you, Dr. Peck. And I certainly appreciate all the information about water. Many things of which people have never heard of. This is probably the first time for a lot of people. And I know when I first started using this machine, it was because my wife had chronic Lyme disease, and she had been on antibiotics for quite some time, and the doctor essentially told her that they weren't working. And so a very good friend of mine who was a PhD researcher from Canada told me he had been doing work with this machine and recommended that I buy one, which I did. And when I found out that my wife had Lyme disease, I also found out that my 2 dogs had Lyme disease. And with the water, it was just an incredible positive reaction to the water. And I had a lot of people that I knew that had Lyme disease, and I just started sharing the water. And the feedback that I got was absolutely tremendous. And then I started to learn some things about water, and this was about 4 years ago. Learned a lot in the last 4 years. Back then, I was one of the people that thought water was just water. And then I started to do some research about the type of water that I was actually drinking a lot of. And a lot of it was bottled water. And when I found out about the pH scale, and really it wasn't from 7 to 6, just 1 point, that it was 10 points. And then I was thinking about what I was doing. I was buying bottled water. A lot of it was 4 pH. So I should have had 7 or better at the very minimum. So from 7 to 6 is 10 times more acidic, and 7 to 5 is 100, and 7 to 4 is 1,000 times more acidic. And so your body has an incredible ability to compensate for all the bad things that we do. But when you're getting to that level of acidosis, your body, after a while, just cannot compensate for that anymore. And so when I started to learn those types of things, then it started to make sense what I was doing, and why the whole family just wasn't doing well, including my dogs. And then when I found out about the oxidation reduction potential, which can be measured by a machine. You can actually measure this. You can look at water, and it looks, whether it's bottled water or reverse osmosis or whatever, it all looks the same, tap water. But when you put an ORP meter on it, and you actually find out what that ORP reading is, it is enlightening. And so here I was drinking very, very oxidated water and giving it to my family and my pets and didn't even know it. So it's been an incredible education for me. And then I started to do research and looked at reports from the World Health Organization. There's one 2004 World Health Organization report where they actually talk about how reverse osmosis distilled water was truly invented for industrial purposes. It never really was meant to drink. And then they go into a lot of long-term population studies in Europe and Eastern Europe, and they talk about the devastating effects on the population when they actually started using these other waters. So when I actually did that type of research, it was just horrifying to me. And why we don't know that, I mean, why more people don't know that, I don't really know. But I really appreciate you, Dr. Peck, with what you're doing, trying to educate people.
Well, thank you. And that's a wonderful story that you shared, and just the results that you've experienced, in your own family and in people that you've met who have had these problems. And the people you're talking about with Lyme disease weren't just diagnosed, a week earlier. They had had it for quite a while, and the doctors had tried, everything they could, and they were getting, these people were getting worse. And, it's amazing that something as simple as water could turn things around. Incidentally, I'm just going to comment here that, how did this research take place? How did this Japanese company end up doing the research to come out with these machines about 40 years ago? Well, they were actually studying the water in Lourdes, France, and at the base of the Himalaya Mountains, where people live the longest of anywhere in the world. And what they found is, the water was alkaline, in those environments, and it had some of the other properties too. And so that's why they set on a search to find out, okay, how could they recreate it? And Kangen actually means back to the origin. So they're trying to get water back to how it originally was, intended to keep us healthy. Let's hear from Pat Charles.
I'm very happy to be on this call, and I thank you, Dr. Peck. It's been very enlightening. You've done a wonderful job. I'm pleased to be able to share a few details of someone very dear to me, and that is my soon-to-be 98-year-old mother, Jane. She has had a few health issues over the years, namely joint pain and poor circulation. Poor circulation in her left artery. Only 60 days ago, this is May of this year, when I came down to Florida, which is where she lives, for a 3-week visit, I was able to arrange for a Kangen water unit in her home, and she has been drinking 9.5 pH alkaline water every day since, at the rate of 1 cup per hour while she's awake. She likes and craves the water. Much of her pain has diminished. She uses her cane now only when she leaves the house. We are very satisfied with her progress in such a short time, especially considering her age. I just wanted to mention that she has a goal to live to be 100, is to be the first one in our family to live to be 100, and I think she's going to make it. That and hopefully beyond. I'm pleased to be involved with this company. I know that all of us, including myself, the rest of my family, would not be as healthy as we are now. I've been drinking the water myself for 4 years. My mother's been out of state, and it was not so convenient, but now she has her own water unit. She's very pleased. She wants to stay on the water. That's about it.
Okay, so your mother is 97 years old now, soon to be 98, and you borrowed a unit when you flew down from Virginia to Florida. You met with her, and your mom used it, and her pain improved. You know, maybe her, I don't know about her circulation when you were commenting, but her pain definitely improved. She was using a cane to get around, you know, almost everywhere she went, and then she didn't need a cane, you know, for most of the places she went around with. And what about when it was time to give up the demo unit? How did she do with that?
Well, we still have the loaner unit. We will be purchasing one of her very own. She asked me about that and said, "You're not going to take my water unit away, are you?" She's really enjoyed the water, the taste of it, and the results, the benefits of it. So she will have her very own unit.
Yeah. So
there won't be a gap in time. She's drinking the water now. We have the water unit, and we will be getting her very own in a few days.
Yeah, so the reason I'm pointing that out is that when the time came for the demo unit to be returned, she said it's not leaving the zone. You know, this is a 98-year-old lady, that's saying.
Absolutely. She understands and recognizes the difference, how she feels, and also the taste of the water. She, in the past, would have tap water or some other water, but would always put a wedge of lemon because she never liked the taste of any of the waters. But now she's drinking the water without the lemon.
Yes. Well, we've had people at our home, numerous people have commented that they like the water. People that said they didn't like water before, that they dislike this water when it's gone through the machine. So it goes to a filter first, and then it goes to the ionizer. And so this is a resource that you can use to learn more about healthy water at bestwater777.com. And when you go to this site, you can click on resources at the top, and then the resources are organized in different ways. There's some videos and some articles. You can click on water demo, at the top right, or you can go under resources and click on video, or you can click demo and is one of the tabs there up at the top. And you can watch a 25-minute video, scientific video, just showing different types of water being tested for pH, oxidative reduction potential, and then the microclustering too, with the tea bags, and then another property too with the tomatoes. So recommend that you do that. But take a look at some of those resources. Read what other people what other scientists and physicians have to say. Hear some of the case studies. I'm just going to share this too. It took 30, 40 years after there was so much anecdotal evidence that
that smoking caused cancer before it was finally reported that smoking caused cancer. And, so it took that long. Well, I'm just saying there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, a lot of case studies of people experiencing dramatic turnarounds in a variety of health challenges of diseases by drinking healthy water. And they're case studies. So, water is water. And so, people aren't going to go ahead and, and some scientific studies are being done. But, it's not a major money-making thing. And so, with drug companies, doing research trying to prove something. So, but this is, it's more than just intuitive. There's so much, I believe, just what some of these leading scientists of the 20th century have come to the conclusion after years and years of doing research. I believe this is hidden from the public, and it's time for this message to get out. So, without further ado, we'll go ahead and just close out this webinar. I want to thank each of you for participating in this live. For each of you who listens to this at some point in the future, thank you, and help spread the word. You can help spread the word by referring them to bestwater777.com. That's where we're putting the webinar replays that I'm hosting, so you can refer people to this one or any of the other ones that we've done. So blessings to you to drink healthy water, to learn more about it, and to let other people know too. We're about creating a culture of wellness in this world. Blessings to all of you, and good night. And thank you, Pat Cassidy and Patricia Charles, for participating as panelists.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this concludes our webinar. Good night.
Good night.